What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Weekend Roundup here on Touchline Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content going up on the channel. Just want to keep it pretty brief and talk about the U.S. men's national team getting a 2-0 win over Panama in the first game of the Mauricio Pochettino era. It's 1-0 for a while. Ricardo Pepi adds the second late on. And yes, this is a friendly with a lot of key players missing against Panama. So there's only so much to take from this. However, this is what we have to go on. And there are a couple things I did want to discuss that could mean something moving forward. Let's just start by acknowledging that was a much better performance than the last time these two teams played at Copa America. That was, if you remember, the Tim Weah red card game. So there were plenty of positives in terms of just the performance and the way things looked. Was it perfect? No, of course not. And there are things that can be changed quickly, and I'm going to get to one of those in particular. One of the things that can't be changed quickly and might not be able to be changed for the 2026 World Cup is that this team really struggles playing out of the back. And you have a goalkeeper in Matt Turner who is not particularly good with the ball at his feet. We have seen these sloppy turnovers, their inability to put passes together and actually carry the ball up the field. Bad passes, bad positions leading to goal scoring opportunities and goals for opponents, turning the ball over dangerous areas. You can't solve that in one camp, one game. So, yes, that's a problem. Continues to be a problem. It was a problem in this game. There's just nothing new there. That's not anything Pochettino can do something about in this short of span of time. So I'm not too focused on that, but I wanted to acknowledge that was part of this. Panama could have tied this game for sure. It wasn't like it was a super dominant performance, but ultimately they got the goals. Generally, it looked pretty good, especially when you wrap it in the context of sort of what's reasonable to expect from this team based on what we've seen recently. Because it was a significant improvement from Copa America. The two things that really stood out to me. Number one was the formation and Yunus Musa's positioning. This was not your typical 4-3-3. It was more of a 4-2-3-1, 5-2-3 kind of thing. And instead of playing central, Yunus Musa was playing pretty far wide on the right. It seemed to work. He played well. Obviously, he got his first international goal from that position. The more I think about this, the more I think that this could work. Part of this conversation has been, how do you compensate when Serginho Dest is not available? Is Joe Scally the replacement? If you go to 5 at the back, what could that look like? This is another interesting thing to explore in terms of how Pochettino could use Yunus Musa in this kind of position moving forward. And what this might look like when you have a Tyler Adams and a Weston McKennie hopefully on the field and available. So right away, you saw the formation change, the plan change. That is something that you can change right away. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, but you saw that Pochettino wants to use this team differently. Because we had never seen Yunus Musa play in that kind of position before. And you saw some moments of good high pressing. That was promising. I can think of one in particular where Jedi Robinson got up the field, forced a turnover, won a throw in deep in opposition territory. Going to see more and more of that. Another good thing to build off of. You started to see some of what Pochettino wants from this team. The other big thing that stood out to me, and it certainly applied more to the first goal than the second, so I'm just going to stick with the first goal. That's a ball from a center back to the left back, played back to Pulisic, who then gets Aronson involved, who then gives it back to Pulisic, who then crosses it for Musa. That's half your outfield players directly involved in that play. Not only was it a really well-worked goal, but how often do you see this team score goals like that? right? This team has a well-earned reputation for being really bad at breaking down teams by creating goals outside of transition moments through passing, through breaking lines, through building from the back, right? Through 1v1 moments, all of that stuff. This team really struggles when you just put a low block out there and say, go break it down. And maybe I'm forgetting one, but there's not a goal that I have seen recently that looked and felt like that one to me. Now, could that just be a coincidence? Sure. Maybe we don't see another goal like that for another year. Because that is also something you can't fix in one camp. There's been way too long of a track record of this team not being good breaking teams down to all of a sudden believe that one goal, one game, and this is fixed. But it's something worth paying attention to, just like Musa's positioning and how Pochettino ends up using this team in the formation he ends up kind of picking. If that's going to become part of this, that they can score goals like that, and they are finding ways to get into good positions in the final third and then putting the ball in the back of the net, that is a really, really big development. So it's a really positive sign that they already got a goal like that in game one under Pochettino. Not going to overreact to it because we have a long track record of that not happening. But it's something keeping an eye on. If this becomes a new trend, that is a really, really good thing. And then the final point I do want to make here, overall, definitely positive. Yes, it's hard to figure out exactly what to take from this, especially when you have players kind of in and out, and this is not close to your first choice team. There's another group of players that are departing after this game before Mexico to go back to their clubs. Christian Pulisic is among them, so you're not going to get too much more information from the second game either. But like I said, this is what we have to look at and analyze. And then the other part of this is the first camp. First time we've seen this process, right? The two biggest questions I have with this team and Pochettino is, number one, is this group going to mature and have the awareness to recognize that whatever they have been doing in the past from a mentality, a preparation standpoint wasn't good enough, and actually take a step forward? I've talked about this time and time again, but nobody can change this if the players don't want this to change and if they don't buy in. That's part one. Part two is, if the players accept responsibility and are doing their job, can Pochettino take his vision, his philosophy, his approach, and implement it in the club game? Implement it in the international game rather than the club game. He doesn't have time with these players. He doesn't control these players' fitness sessions, training plans, weekly, daily routines, all of that stuff that is crucial to being able to play the way he wants to play, and stuff that he gets to control at the club level. If he doesn't feel like his team's fitness where he wants it to be, he can work on that and make them hypothetically improve in that area. At least give them the opportunity to. Spend time working on that. He has very little control over what Christian Pulisic's doing at AC Milan or what Anthony, Jedi Robinson's doing at Fulham, or what Gio Reyna's doing at Dortmund, or, whatever player. That's the part of this, right? We can't know that in one game, one camp. We're going to have to wait and see on this. But there was a different feel, and you heard players talking about this has been the longest training sessions we've ever had. They've been some of the most challenging. That's not surprising. Pochettino said that's what's going to happen. Whether that works, what the ramifications are, we just don't know yet. So, a couple things at least to take note of, to think about moving forward, heading into this Mexico game, heading into the next camp. to see if these become trends or things worth discussing. Ultimately, it's a win. It's positives to take away, and we'll go from there. That is all for the weekend roundup. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time.